In a tranquil military cemetery at Fort Devens, Massachusetts, west of Boston, lie the graves of Italian and German prisoners of war. One notable tombstone is that of U-boat, Unterseeboot, German submarine, Captain Lieutenant Tristenhoff, dead at 37 years of age in post-war America, his final days marked by mysterious complications while in custody. In a serene cemetery in New Mexico lies the gravesite of Frederick's brother, Ernst. For his pioneering work in rocket guidance engineering with Wernher von Braun, German-American aerospace engineer, he is inducted into the International Space Hall of Fame. The National Socialist, Nazi Party of Germany, past of Ernst will eventually raise ethical questions. During World War II, Second World War, the objective of both brothers was to use their training and respective skills to destroy the Allies. The Germans open unrestricted submarine warfare. Ernst is born in Tisa, Germany on February 11, 1908. On July 14, 1909, his brother Frederick is born in Cuchet. As a young teenager, Ernst possesses a passion for flight and indulges in studying and flying gliders. In 1923, he joins a group of his high school friends in Kassel in their pursuit of gliding activities. Well, a glider is an airplane that doesn't have an engine, so you're just depending on the altitude and the updrafts to carry you along till you find a place to land, because you're always coming down, except for the updrafts. He was a glider pilot. Once Adolf Hitler becomes chancellor in 1933, the various flight organizations become nationalized and fall under Nazi supervision. The Nazi Party, National Socialist German Workers' Party, soon extends political authority over all aspects of civilian life, including glider clubs, which were most often right-wing. In 1935, Ernst holds a thin-distance gliding record of 500 kilometers, or over 300 miles, by flying from Broid, Germany to Brunn in the former Czechoslovakia, Central European country, now Czech Republic and Slovakia. Given Ernst's complete fascination for studies of flight in the 1930s, the decade from 1930 to 1939, he pursues engineering at Darmstadt Technical University. In the meantime, his brother Frederick, Fritz, follows his passion for the sea. Frederick was a German naval officer before he joined the Navy in 1935. He served for a couple of years in the German Merchant Marine, and there he got the license to serve as first officer on ocean-going ships. But with the restoration of the German Army and the Navy in the early 1930s, the decade from 1930 to 1939, he chooses that he should join the naval ranks. And that is exactly what he did when he entered the Navy in 1935. So he had to train as a commanding officer, first as a pupil commander on a frontline boat, and then as a special commander course in the Baltic Sea before he was given his first command. Commander Steinhoff was an accomplished sailor. He was loved by his crew, and the people that knew him well said that he was a very devoted captain. He took care of and was very concerned about the safety of his young crewmen. His wife, Ela, said he loved the open sea, but was very claustrophobic. He, however, entered into the U-boat, Unterseeboot, German submarine, division of the Kriegsmarine, German Navy, in 1941. Respected and viewed as courageous heroes by leaders of Germany, Steinhoff, a U-boat, Unterseeboot, German submarine commander, and other German submarine officers patrolling the Atlantic are considered major threats by the Allies in the Battle of the Atlantic. Britain's hope for survival is a merchant ship supply line for food and arms, crucial to facing a potential invasion by Germany in Operation Sea Lion. The war rages on. Alfred serves in the Navy, and Ernst begins working at the Peenemünde rocket site, recruited by Wernher von Braun in 1939. Ernst Steinhoff was a glider pilot. He was connected to the Research Institute for Gliding in Darmstadt, which was a research institution of the Air Ministry in the Luftwaffe. He was trying to finish a PhD on aircraft instruments when he was hired by Peenemünde, so he had actually not quite finished his doctorate yet. But something about him, maybe he meshed well with the personality of Wernher von Braun, who was the technical head of the project, something caused von Braun to think he was the right person to help guide this technical project of developing a guidance system. Ernst, filled with ambition and experience, sees Peenemünde as an ideal location for his future work in flight and eventually rocket engineering. This is Peenemünde, Germany's top-secret rocket research facility in the marshes and sand dunes near the Baltic Sea. Here, in 1937 and 1938, late 1930s, the guided missile is moving from the drawing board to reality. The story of Peenemünde began well before the Second World War. Even before the Nazi regime came into power, strategists in the Army Ordnance Office discussed how to rearm Germany after the loss of the First World War, starting in 1930. They got the idea of creating a missile system as a long-range weapon to terrorize civilians, destroy cities, and create what was later called total war. With experience in instrumentation and guidance control, Ernst eventually becomes more involved in what becomes Germany's latest secret weapon, the V-2 rocket, Verteidigungswaffe 2, Vengeance Weapon 2, a long-range ballistic missile. The rocket is a harbinger of future warfare. Steinhoff was an academic by training. He was also an enthusiast in flying and was a pilot himself. He was motivated by personal interest and as a visionary engineer to create something completely new. He was also strongly right-wing, a militarist and nationalist, and proud to work for the German army. So the V-2 rocket was a liquid propellant rocket. It burned liquid oxygen and alcohol to create thrust of over 50,000 pounds to propel the missile towards an enemy city about 200 miles away. In order to hit a target, it required a guidance and control system. Inside the nose of the rocket, under the warhead, there was gyroscopic equipment and other instruments to direct the missile towards its target. This was the most difficult challenge of the V-2 rocket, accuracy. In reality, it was not very accurate in its use. Steinhoff was hired as department director, responsible for the complete guidance system and measuring instruments. His team worked on the problem of launching a missile from point A to point B. The launch was vertical, and then it had to transition into a ballistic trajectory towards targets such as London and other British cities. They used two main systems, a gyroscope system inside the rocket, and a radar-guided control system from outside. The radar system sent signals to guide the rocket towards its target. My understanding is that during a casual family conversation, the two brothers discussed their areas of expertise, one a submarine commander, the other a rocket scientist. They wondered whether it would be possible to place rockets on a submarine. This idea led to experiments. They used an off-the-shelf rocket system and mounted 6 rockets on the stern of the U-511 submarine. On June 4, 1942, they submerged about 40 feet off the coast of the rocket research facility at Peenemünde in the Baltic Sea and successfully launched rockets. This proved that rockets could be fired from a submerged submarine underwater. This achievement came about 15 years before the United States, USA, and the Soviet Union, USSR, achieved similar capability. The purpose was to test whether a shoreline could be bombarded from a U-boat. However, the submarine would likely need to surface or stay just below the surface to fire rockets. These rockets used solid propellants, solid fuel. They proved two things. First, rockets could be fired from a submerged submarine. Second, the range was disappointing, only about 5 kilometers. Because of this short range, the German U-boat command concluded that these weapons were not useful in the Battle of the Atlantic. Submarines would need to get dangerously close to shore to attack targets. At Peenemünde, Ernst, disappointed with the U-511 experiment, continued working with Wernher von Braun and a team of scientists. He served as director of flight mechanics, ballistics, guidance, control, and instrumentation. The goal was to produce a guided missile with an explosive warhead, the foundation of the V-1 and V-2 weapons. The V-2 rocket was designed not just to destroy targets, but to terrorize civilians psychologically. The idea was to create fear. Attacks could come any time, day or night. This psychological warfare aimed to force British society to surrender. However, the range of these weapons